Effective real estate project management training is crucial for all project managers, PMP certified or not. Praizion Media offers real-world project management training, PMP exam training, CAPM training, leadership training, Microsoft project and communications training in Arizona, California, New York, Washington, D.C., Virginia, London, UK, Canada, and indeed, the world. Get PMP certified or learn the basics of project management. Praizion Media will train you or your team on site via the internet, CDs, DVDs, MP3s, or through our books and study guides. Our trainers are real-world project managers with experience in various industries, government, engineering, IT, aerospace, healthcare, and more. Visit www.praizion.com or call 480-545-2022 to learn how we can help you build invincible PMP certified project managers. Stop losing money on failed and unnecessary projects and get your project managers trained to be leaders and trailblazers. Visit www.praizion.com. That's PRAIZION.com or call now 480-545-2022. Praizion Media, real-world project management training solutions. And now, let's listen to Phil, the PMP Doctor.
Hi there, how you doing? I'd just like to give you some really quick tips about the PMP exam. Now, very recently, I have heard so many horror stories about the PMP exam. I'm a PMP. I took the exam back in '05. But I have students who take the exam every now and again, and I also listen out for what people are saying on the blogs and on the boards and on LinkedIn and all those social media websites. Well, I've heard one thing that really concerns me, and I have to share that with you because I want you to ace the test. My goal is to get you to the point where you are absolutely confident and you feel comfortable in taking the exam. All right? So, listen up to this. The exam nowadays is not a walk in the park. It's not like it was back in '05, '04. No. It's not like that. It's changed. It's very difficult. Very, very difficult. Now, you might be one of the bright people who have been to college and you've been to all those Ivy League type schools. It doesn't come into play where the PMP exam is concerned. Your GPA has no say on whether you pass or fail the PMP. I have come across very brilliant people, phenomenal people, people who can solve mathematical equations and real life problems till the cows come home. I've come across all sorts of people. People who work for the state, who work for the city, who work for the government. It has no say whatsoever on whether they pass or fail the PMP exam. And that's why I'm here today, to tell you, don't count on past success. It has no bearing whatsoever in this exam. This is a tough, rough, brutal exam for many people. Many people have spent thousands of dollars on trying to pass this exam and have failed, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And I don't want that to happen to you. So what am I going to do to help you out, to give you some insights onto what you need to do? You cannot afford to be proud. You cannot afford to be cocky on this exam. I tell you, this exam has flawed several people. So I'm kind of giving you a precaution. If you have set your PMP exam and you have not studied the Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide in detail, don't do it. Now, one of my students who's been studying for the past 6 months, mind you, actually he defies the 6-month rule that I put in, which is if you don't take the PMP exam within 6 months, well, chances are very slim. Well, he actually defied that rule 2 days ago. His name's Gerry. Now what did Gerry do? Gerry had a long-range plan, 6-month plan. He had been planning to do this since October, November last year. And I remember when he called our office and I spoke to him for a bit, and we're trying to put our heads together on what he should do, because we have so many solutions for people studying for this exam. And we decided the best thing for him to do would be to go with a DVD set, and go with a CD set, and also go with our online 40 Days to PMP exam track. Now, how did that help Gerry over a 6-month period? Now, this, I'm not telling you to do it in 6 months. I'm saying typically I tell people to do it in 2 or 3. But what helped Gerry was he had a solid plan. He stuck to the plan. He did things in a methodical order. He did them very thoroughly. He actually asked me lots of deep questions about all of the modules that he was studying, all of the DVDs across the different knowledge areas. And then our 40-day track, which is not by knowledge area, but is by process group, he had questions about that as well. Very detailed questions. That told me that he was kind of setting himself up for success. But there's something that he told me after he passed the exam, and this is what I really want to share with you. This is what I call it. I call it Gerry's double cross hatch approach. Gerry's double crosshatch approach. Now, what does Gerry mean by a double crosshatch approach? The moment I heard him say that yesterday as we had our lessons learned call about how he studied to success, and he brought up his double crosshatch approach, I said, Gerry, what do you mean? Explain it to me a little bit more. And he said, Phil, the double crosshatch approach is studying in detail in such a way that you form a crosshatch that nothing is missed. So I'm like, tell me more. He says, well, first of all, I studied other people's material. They couldn't make any head or tail out of it. But I started studying your material with the DVDs. I went through the knowledge areas, chapters 1 to 12. He said, yeah, that was good. I understood some, but what really sealed it for me, what really absolutely made sure that I understood the material, was studying the 40 Days to PMP exam success track. And that is by process group. So his double crosshatch approach, if you wanted to call it that, is studying horizontally, but not just that, also studying vertically. And he called that the double crosshatch approach. Now, it might just be like, well, that's not rocket science, I already know that. But do you do it? How many people studying for the PMP exam study by knowledge area and then again by process group? So I'm talking about, on average, 40 hours of studying by knowledge area, 40 hours of studying by process group. How many people do that? Let's be honest. If you're preparing for the exam, do you do that? Have you done that? Or do you just study by knowledge area? And when you study, do you just read like in a linear fashion? Or do you study? Now, in order to ace the PMP exam, you cannot afford to look at a process or a tool and say, okay, well, I think I understand this, I'll come back to it later. No. That's not going to cut it. You're going to have to study the detail. You're going to have to go wild on each component of a process. So for example, you've got develop project charter. The business case is an input to develop project charter. How much do you know about the business case? How deep have you gone into the details? Let's talk about the output of develop project charter, the project charter. How much do you know about what is in the project charter? Did you stop at the surface and say, oh yeah, it just authorizes the project manager to apply resources. It's signed by the sponsor. Is that what you did? Or did you go into the detail? You need the detail, okay? And that's what the double crosshatch approach is all about. Study by knowledge area in detail. Study by process group in detail. Let me show you very quickly what this is all about. Very quickly. In order to execute Gerry's double crosshatch approach, and many thanks to Gerry Zapiain for sharing this with me, because I think it's a great term. Double crosshatch. You're studying double, but not studying by knowledge area twice. You're studying by knowledge area twice, and probably by process group twice. So it looks something like this. You study integration by knowledge area twice, but guess what? You study initiating twice. So we're talking about knowledge area, and we're talking about process group. So you study by process group twice, you study by knowledge area twice. It forms a double crosshatch, and it makes you even more knowledgeable, even more insightful of the information. So I'm challenging you. If you've taken the exam before, you failed it, how about thinking about Gerry's double crosshatch approach? Study by process group twice, study by knowledge area twice. Don't cut corners. Don't say, oh, I've been studying for so long, I can't wait to take this exam, I just want to go in and do it. No, don't do that. Don't do that. You need to spend time. How much does it cost to take this exam? Have you forgotten? Surely you haven't. You remember. $555. And that's if you're not a member. Now, if you are a member and you paid $129 for membership, it costs $405 to take the exam. But guess what? You add it all up, comes to $534. So tell me, isn't it dumb to spend $555 or $534 on an exam and not put in great study time? Isn't it dumb? Because what you're doing ultimately is you're playing Russian roulette. You're gambling with $555. Now, I know people that have spent $555 and $275 and $275 again until they finally pass the exam. In fact, in the past 1 year, I have had people use other solutions, use solutions that cost $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, and finally they take the exam after going for those very expensive courses, fail the test, and then they come across the modest, at most $200 that they need to take our courses or get our material. They get on the ride, take the course, listen to the audio, watch the video, and then they ace the test. I've had 3 people in the past year take the exam, and they use our solution on the 3rd try, and then they pass the exam. And they're really happy that they did it. And they ask themselves, where did I go wrong the first time? I'll tell you where they went wrong. Double crosshatch, probably missing. Now, some people don't do the double crosshatch. They're just fortunate that they can put all the information, they can compartmentalize all the information and understand the relationships. And that's why they pass the exam. A lot of people say, well, if you don't have real-world project management experience, you cannot pass the exam. Of course, you shouldn't even take the exam if you're not a project manager. If you haven't managed projects, you've got no business taking the exam. But it goes beyond that. Do you know why? Because the PMP exam content is extremely different. The PMBOK guide is probably like nothing you've ever faced. Except you work on very rigorous, disciplined projects where the company has embraced the PMBOK guide, where they truly know the value of planning. Because when you look at the PMBOK guide, I mean, you look at the initiating process group and the planning process group, right? You've got 22 processes out of 42 used to initiate and plan. So that tells you if your organization is not really into planning, not really into front-end planning, if you're into engineering and other disciplines that really require detailed planning, if you're not into those kind of projects, it might be very difficult for you to relate to the PMBOK guide. Some people actually call it a fairy tale, but it's not. Actually, the PMBOK guide is just the beginning. Lots of organizations go beyond the PMBOK guide. In fact, the PMI has lots of standards, about 12 standards, right? So there are about 11 standards you've not even studied. A standard for WBS creation, one for earned value management, one for risk management, one for scheduling, one for risk. I mean, you haven't even started. So the PMBOK guide is the beginning. You know, you want to talk about portfolio management, program management, so on. You've got standards for those. So the PMBOK guide is at that high level. So if you haven't been exposed to PMI type project management, you're going to have to work hard. Work hard. So don't burn your $555 or $534. You need to work hard. So use the double crosshatch approach. Twice by process group to the point of understanding, to the point that you can talk to your 12-year-old niece or nephew and say, this is what this part of what I'm studying is all about. In fact, one of my students in Canada told me his 12-year-old son was correcting him on the ITTOs because he's been studying it so much, and he's got this 14-inch screen on his wall in his office, and his son watches the ITTO videos that we've got out, and his son knows the ITTOs even better than he does. And he corrects him in the middle of his, when he's doing his quizzes. His son says, "Dad, you've got that wrong." That's not an input to that process. It's amazing how you can do stuff over and over again, and people at home get so fed up. Like, when are you going to stop? Like Gerry, I was talking to Gerry on the phone yesterday doing his lessons learned, and he said, one of the biggest things is my family's really grateful that they don't need to hear your voice again, Phil. They don't need to be tortured with any more DVDs or videos of you talking. Well, on a serious note, it really feels good to be done with a PMP exam. It's like a monkey on the back. It's like a weight hanging over your neck. You know what I mean? So, if you really want to be free of the PMP exam once and for all, please put in the time, double dose, crosshatch, put in the time, and the other big thing you want to do, you want to spend time on mock exams. Now, since the new exam in August 2011, the new exam, those of you who are familiar with when the new exam came into existence, there's been a lot of talk on the blogs, like I said earlier. Do you know the big thing that people tell me? They tell me, "Phil, the exam was very difficult, it was tough, and it was long-winded." Well, I told you it was going to be long-winded. Hello, I told you this months ago. Did you forget? Did you think I was joking? It's amazing how much people forget until they're in the exam. And they think, wow, this exam is long-winded. 7 lines long, 6 lines long, 5 lines long. The questions are not the namby-pamby 1, 2, 3 line questions that you see on many exams. Now, many exams may not even be namby-pamby. They may be very difficult. But do you know the big thing? Can you imagine a difficult exam of 3 lines long, reinforced on steroids with questions that are 6 lines long? And the way the questions are written, they're written in such a way to deceive you that all the information is relevant. These are not the kind of questions that you could see the first 3 lines and say, oh, I'm going to skip over line 4, 5 and go straight to the end. It's gotten quite tough. So it's not like the typical mock exam that you take. Very unpredictable. Who knows how many questions are in that bank? So you really need to cover your bases. You need to read wide, you need to read hard, you need to read smart. And at the end, when you've done your double crosshatch, you've prepared for long-winded questions that will waste your time and take you all the way to 3 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Those are the kind of questions I'm talking about. If you haven't taken a mock exam where you have found yourself studying or reading the questions for 3 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds, you haven't started. I remember on one of my PMI exams, I was counted out. I just saw, you've got 10 seconds left to finish this exam. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Now, if I wasn't sure that I had answered enough questions to pass, I would have been sweating. Now this wasn't the PMP. My PMP exam, you probably watched the video where I talk about it. It was just horrific. It was horrible. I thought I was going to fail. I was saying my last prayers. In fact, that's why I trained the PMP. Because I made a pact. If I can come out of this thing alive, I'm going to let everyone know what not to do, what to do to come out alive like I did. But really, now, you need to study hard. You need to read far. You need to do mock exams that will really test you. So if you haven't done mock exams that take you to the borderline of 4 hours, I'd like to inform you, the new exam doesn't afford you the luxury of a 2.5 hour PMP exam anymore. It's not like that. It used to be like that. You know, I remember back in 2010, a particular stakeholder of mine took the PMP exam, and I knew what time he went in. You know, I'm on Mountain Standard Time, he's on East Coast Time, and I know the time he went into the exam. So I was absolutely horrified to check my email. You know, my time was probably like 9 or 10 my time in the morning, but I checked my email and I found out he had sent me an email to say, I've passed the exam. And it couldn't have been more than 2.5 hours that he just went in. So how was he able to send me an email at 10:30 in the morning my time to say I've passed the exam? That means he spent under 2.5 hours. And he passed the exam. And there were many students like that in 2010. But that has changed. All of my students, they moan, they groan about 3 hours, 50 minutes, 3 hours, 55 minutes, and so on. So just reading the exam takes a lot more time these days. And that's what I want to call your attention to. Understanding the information, using the double crosshatch approach, and taking some crazy mock exams. I don't know which mock exams you've got access to, but you want to take mock exams that are really treacherous, because you want to come across those horrible questions before you take the real deal. Okay? Now right now, I'm working on even more questions to make life miserable for my students before they take the real thing. And I'm working on a bank of really long-winded, miserable questions. So you might want to contact me around June, find out how my miserable question bank is coming along. I've already got one miserable bank, but I'm making them even more miserable for people. Because one thing I hate is for you not to be made miserable before the exam and to be made miserable after. It's better to be miserable before you take the real exam. Brush yourself up, prepare better, reinforce, and when you take the real exam, you're going to be all over it. Okay? So it's been great talking to you. Thank you for your audience. Go to www.praizion.com. If you've been struggling with the exam content, you don't know where to start, you find it very difficult, maybe you failed the exam once, twice, 3 times, doesn't matter. You can pick yourself up, dust yourself up. Let's get this show on the road, okay? I'll speak to you soon. Take care.